Hello everyone. In today's class, we shall discuss about the Streeter-Phelps equation and disposal of effluents onto the ocean and land. Okay. In the previous classes, we have discussed about the disposal of effluents on the water bodies, that is rivers and lakes, and what are its effects, and the self-purification phenomena and zones of purification. Okay, and oxygen sat curve and deoxygenation and reoxygenation curves along with oxygen deficit, and what are the causes of this reoxygenation and deoxygenation curve and the phenomena of self-purification. Okay, so considering all these things, one of the scientists, you can say, so he has proposed a self-purification phenomena using the mathematical one-dimensional dissolved oxygen model. Okay, so which is famously called as Streeter-Phelps 1D dissolved oxygen model. Okay, so let us see what is this Streeter-Phelps equation, okay, for a dissolved oxygen in stream. So this according to the Streeter-Phelps equation, so the entire self-purification phenomena is expressed using a Streeter-Phelps equation to estimate the critical time and oxygen deficit in a stream whenever the wastewater is discharged. Okay, so the entire analysis of this deoxygenation reoxygenation is carried out mathematically, and this is the resulting equation out of this. It is given by dt is equal to kd into L divided by kr minus kd into 10 to the power of minus kd into t minus 10 to the power of minus kr into t plus d naught into 10 to the power of minus kr into t. Okay, so here dt is the dissolved oxygen deficit in milligram per liter after t days. That means when you discharge the wastewater, if you want to find out what is the DO deficit after some period of time or some days, then this equation can be used, where L is the ultimate first stage BOD of the mix at the point of wastewater discharge in mg per liter, and DO is the initial oxygen deficit of the time of mix at the mixing point in milligram per liter, and KD is the deoxygenation coefficient for wastewater, which can be considered as equal to BOD rate constant determined in laboratory. Okay, so the KD value is directly related with the temperature, and it varies with the temperature. So it can be found out by this KD at given temperature T is equal to KD at temperature 20 degrees centigrade into 1.017 to the power of T minus 20. Okay, so the typical values of KD vary between KD20 vary between 0.1 to 0.2, and generally it is taken as 0.1. Okay, and KR is called as the reoxygenation coefficient for the stream. It can be determined by the field. It can be determined in the field by using the equation KD is equal to 3.9 under root P divided by y to the power of 1.5. Okay, like I told you, reoxygenation is dependent on the velocity in the stream and also the turbulence which is happening. So considering this thing, the reoxygenation coefficient can be obtained using this equation. Okay, so that is 3.9 under root V divided by y to the power of 1.5. So where V is average stream velocity in meter per second and y is the average stream depth in meter. Okay, and Kr varies with temperature as per the equation. Kr at d degree centigrade is equal to Kr at 20 degree into 1.016 to the power of T minus 20. Okay, so these three equations you should remember, maybe in order to solve the problem based on the self-purification phenomena, considering the deoxygenation and reoxygenation coefficients and its estimation using the equations. And this is called as the Streeter-Phelps one-dimensional dissolved oxygen model, or simply Streeter-Phelps equation for self-purification phenomena. Okay, and these are some of the typical reoxygenation coefficient values based on the experiments by the different people, and they have obtained these values. For small ponds and backwaters, the value of Kr at 20 degree per day varies as 0.05 to 0.10. So for sluggish streams, large lakes and impounding reservoirs, the value of Kr at 20 degrees centigrade is between 0.1 to 0.15. So for large stream of low velocity, it is 0.15 to 0.20. Large stream of normal velocity is 0.2 to 0.3, and for swift streams it is 0.3 to 0.5. For rapid waterfalls it is more than 0.5. Okay, so because for waterfalls the turbulence and the velocity will be more, and also the waterfalls will have more contact in the air. That's why the value is above 0.5. so otherwise it is almost less than 0.1. it varies between 0.05 to 0.5 maximum. Okay, in most of the cases it is taken as 0.15. okay, 0.1 to 0.2. generally average you can take it as 0.15. okay, see, this is the equation which is clearly shown here. Okay, so dt is given by kd into L divided by kr minus kd into 10 to the power of minus kd into t minus 10 to the power of minus kr into t plus do into 10 to the power of minus kr into t. Okay, so these terms I have already explained, okay, in the previous slide, and this is the clear image of the equation. Okay, so you might be knowing what is this deoxygenation and reoxygenation coefficients. Okay, and this is what the terms which means in this dissolved oxygen model. Okay, so like in the previous class we have discussed that when you discharge the wastewater, there will be this is called as this DO, it is called as initial deficit. That means there will be some saturation value. So in beginning, before discharge of the wastewater, there could be some deficit. Okay, that is called as the initial deficit, and this is called as the critical deficit, that is DC. Okay, and this point it is called as the TC critical point, and where these two curves meet, that is called as the critical point, and this is called as oxygen sac curve, that is DO oxygen sac curve, and this is the DO at saturation level. Okay, so sometimes the oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the the receiving streams may not be up to the saturation level. It may be initially deficit or devoid of the oxygen. That means let us assume the saturation level of some particular stream may be 8 to 10 or 8 mg per liter. Then the initial sometimes if you measure the dissolved oxygen content, it may be 6 mg per meter. That means there will be a deficit of around 2 mg per liter, because the saturation limit is 8 mg and the DO measured is 6 mg per liter, and the 2 mg per liter is called as the deficit, that is called as initial deficit in this case, and this is DO minimum. Okay, so the DO minimum, like I told you, it should be it should be minimum of 4 mg per liter. Okay, and this point we call it as the critical point, that is at this point the dissolved oxygen will be 0, and after a period of time the oxygen again starts to increase. Okay, and this equations predicts the dissolved oxygen changes over a DO sac curve with respect to time. Okay, and this is very classical equation which is used for most of the rivers and streams to estimate the self-purifying capacity of the streams. Okay, and this is again a clear image of the Streeter-Phelps equation with respect to this KD and values, and the equations and the terms used, which I have already explained in the earlier slide. It depends on the turbulence and velocity. Okay, and the critical time is obtained by TC into 1 divided by Kr minus Kd into log of Kd into L minus Kr into D0 plus K0 into D0 divided by Kd into L into Kr by Kd, and the critical or maximum oxygen deficit is given by DC is equal to Kd into L divided by Kr into 10 to the power of minus Kd into Tc. So this Kd by Kr is sometimes called as the self-purification constant. Okay, it is represented by F. Okay, and the value of F typically varies between 0.5 to 5 again, so depending upon the different types of the water bodies, which is as shown in this table. Okay, so using this, the ratio of Kd by Kr in equation, the above equation, so the critical time will be given by 1 divided by Kd into F minus 1 into log of 1 minus F minus 1 into D0 by L into F. So where F is the self-purifying constant, or it is the ratio of the deoxygenation to reoxygenation coefficient. Okay, and DC is the critical deficit. It is given by capital L divided by F into 10 to the power of minus Kd into Tc. Okay, solving this equation and substituting the value of Tc from the equation, we will get L divided by DC into F to the power of minus 1 is equal to F into 1 minus F minus 1 into D0 by L. Okay, so this is the self-purifying constant, and the how to find out the critical time and critical deficit using these equations. Okay, so this is about the self purification phenomena using the Streeter-Phelps equation. Okay, it is to find out what is the time at which the self purification and what is the distance from the discharge down in from the point of discharge of wastewater up to which there will be no oxygen or the deficit occurs, or the critical oxygen deficit and critical time. Because if you know these two parameters, so over a distance in a river, then you can decide the location of the intakes. Okay, so in these zones you are not supposed to, because the self purification capacity depends on various factors like stream velocity, oxidation coefficient, deoxidation coefficient. Considering all these things, the Streeter-Phelps has developed this model which can be used for most of the rivers and stream. Okay, so to find out the self purifying capacity. Okay, so now the next part is about the disposal of wastewater into sea or ocean. Okay, in the previous sessions we have seen that what is going to happen in case of the discharge of wastewater in the rivers and stream, and also in the ponds and lakes. Okay, so that is eutrophication and all. So what is the thing when you discharge wastewater into sea or ocean? Okay, so normally because of the salt concentration, the DO in the sea water is approximately 80% of that in the water. That is the saturation level will be relatively less in case of sea. Okay, so because of the saltish nature of the water, and also the temperature of sea water is lower than the sewer temperature. Okay, and the specific gravity is higher. So due to this reason, when the sewage is discharged into the sea water, the light and warm sewage will rise up to the surface, resulting in lighter and warmer sewage to the surface, resulting in the spread of the sewage to the top surface of sea in the thin film, or it is also called as the sleek. Because of the lower temperature, so sewage tends to appear at the top layers in the sea. Okay, and also the sea water contains large amount of dissolved solids, okay, which chemically reacts with the solids and organic matter present in the sewage, giving rise to the milky appearance of the sea water and resulting in the formation of the sludge banks. Okay, and thin milky layer will be formed at the top of the sea, producing very bad odor resulting from the hydrogen sulfide gas. Okay, and also because of the more concentration of sulfates, phosphates and other salts, okay, then it is difficult for the fishes again to survive in this case. Okay, and the sea contains large volume of water, and most of these deficiencies can be overcome if the sewage is discharged deep into the sea, much away from the coastline with extreme care. Okay, so that is the way. If you are opting for the wastewater disposal into the ocean, the outfall sewer should be at a lower level in the sea coast. Okay, so we should not discharge onto the surface to avoid all these problems to form the sludge blanks and the thick milky layer on the surface of the ocean. Okay, so care should be taken that the outfall sewer should be at a sufficient depth from the coastline, okay, rather than discharging it onto the surface. Okay, so this is, you might have seen the lot of debris and all, might have discharged along with the wastewater, and the floating matter may cause the problems in the sea water. Okay, and what is the sewage to be discharged in the marine coast? So the municipal pollution control board have specified the norms. So the BOD can be up to 100 mg per liter, and COD can be up to 250 mg per liter, and the pH value should be in the range of 5.5 to 9. Then the suspended solids should be in the range of 100 mg per liter, oil and grease 20 mg per liter, fluorides 15, ammonia and nitrogen 50 mg per liter. Okay, so these are the tolerance limit up to which the sewage containing these parameters can be discharged in the wastewater. You can see these are relatively higher in comparison with the river water. That is because of the sewage contains very large quantity of water. The sea or ocean contains more quantity of water in terms of volume with respect to the sewage. Okay, and the sea water, this is the comparison. We can see here the sea water and river or stream water dilution. So here if you take the dissolved oxygen as parameter, so then it is usually 20% less than the river. In the rivers we will be having more dissolved oxygen content compared to the seawater. This is because the seawater contains lot of other salts and minerals, and it is chemically little bit difficult to dissolve more amount of dissolved oxygen content into the seawater than in river water. That's why more DO we can find in rivers and stream than the seawater, and the specific gravity of seawater will be high, the river water will be low. The quantity of solids in suspension will be large, and here in this case it is small. The penetration of sun rays, it penetrates less due to the more turbid water. Here the penetration of sun rays will be more due to the clear water. Maximum sewage limits, there is no limit. That means because I told you the volume of the sea or ocean will be very large compared to the sewage which is being discharged. So for that case, so you can discharge maximum quantity of wastewater in a sea or a ocean, and it depends on the stream discharge. So the quantity depends on the depends on the important factor called as dilution factor, which we have discussed in the previous class. That means the ratio of the water, sewage water, to the ratio of the volume of the ratio of the water which is present in the river, that is called as dilution factor. Then condition of sewage after discharge. Okay, usually anaerobic, formation of sludge banks and giving foul odor. In this case, okay, so it becomes anaerobic because the sludge, the anaerobic decomposition is predominant when you discharge the wastewater into the ocean or sea. In this case, it remains anaerobic because much of air will come in contact with the rivers. Okay, so for towns situated on the seashore, so this method is suitable. That is in Karnataka, we have places like Mangalore, and then Udupi, and other places in near the coastline. So we can practice this method of seawater disposal. Okay, and for this disposal method, the town situated on the banks of the river can go for the disposal of wastewater into the rivers and streams. Okay. And what are the points which should be kept in mind while discharging the wastewater into the deep sea or ocean? Okay, in order to mix sewage properly with the seawater, the sewage should be released at a minimum depth of 3 to 5 meters below the water level. Okay, so this I was telling you, we should not discharge it onto the superficial layers. So there should be a minimum depth of around 3 to 5 meters. That means the our outfall sewer which is discharging wastewater into the ocean should be kept at a minimum depth of 3 to 5 meters. Okay, so below the water level, and taking it sufficiently inside the shore. That is, we should not immediately discharge it along the coastline, and we should take sufficiently to the larger length of the depth in case of the ocean. Okay, and also preventing nuisance to bath and recreation centers on the shore. Okay, to prevent the backing up and spreading of the sewage on the seashore, the sewage should be disposed of only during low tides. Okay, so because you see that the sea in case of ocean, the tidal pattern varies. Okay, so that you know that happens because of the gravitational attraction between earth and the moon. Okay, so there will be low tides and also the high tides, and we should see that the sewage is discharged during the low tides. Okay, so because if the if you discharge the wastewater during high tides, then there are much chances that again it will bring back the discharged wastewater to the coastline. Okay, because of the high flowing tides. So that's why it is advisable to discharge the wastewater only during low tides. Okay, and it should and provision of large sized sewer grated with non-return wall at the end is an alternative to hold the sewage during high tides. Okay, so this provision can be made in order to prevent the entry of sewage during high tides. That is a non-return wall, so which will not allow the wastewater to enter into the ocean during the high tides. Okay. Then before deciding the position of the outfall, the sea current, wind direction, velocity, etc. should be properly studied. Okay, so because these will again affect the dispose pattern. Okay, the sea currents, wind direction, etc. velocity should be properly studied, and the point of sewage disposal should be such that sewage is taken away from the shore by the winds and not brought back near the shore by the winds. Okay, so because if you discharge the wastewater, then with these, because of the wind action and the high tidal velocity, it will bring back the debris along with the other sewage matter to the coast. Okay, the outfall of the sewer should be placed on a firm rocky foundation and encased in thick stone masonry so as to properly protect it from the wave action, floating debris, etc. That means the outfall should be placed on a firm rocky foundation with a cast stone masonry so that it will not affect the wavy action of the sea or an ocean and other should not get damaged by the other material. The discharge of industrial wastewater in the sea should be, however, controlled in the respect of quality of effluents by adhering to the Indian standards prescribed by 1968 and 1976. Okay. Then the last part is the disposal of sewage on land. Okay. So this is the another option, that is we have studied the disposal of effluents onto the water bodies, that is the rivers, lakes and streams, and the ocean, and what are the points to be kept. And the next part is disposal of sewage on land. Okay, so in this method the sewage is either treated partially, or sometimes directly the raw sewage is applied onto the land. The most common forms of land application is the sewage irrigation, or it is also called as sewage farming. Okay, so it is defined as when a raw or partially treated sewage is applied on the land, a part of it evaporates and remaining portion percolates into the soil. If proper voids are maintained in the soil, the organic sewage solids are oxidized by the bacteria present in the soil under aerobic conditions. Okay, then however, if the soil is made of heavy, sticky and fine-grained materials, the void space will soon get clogged, resulting in the non-aeration of these voids, which would lead to anaerobic condition and subsequently the evolution of foul gases. Okay, so that means due to the continuous application of the sewage, if there is no proper void space between the grains of the soil, then those things will be blocked and it will cause the odor problems. Okay, and also the application of too strong or too hard of sewage will also result in the quick formation of anaerobic condition. The loads of sewage can be reduced by dilution and also by a process of pre-treatment. That is, if you give a sewage a pre-treatment, so these problems can be avoided. That means to give a minimum treatment of the sewage before you use it for the sewage farming or before you discharge it onto the land. Okay, so we can avoid this problem as well. Okay. So you might have seen, people have simply used the outskirts of the areas and they just discharge the sewage onto the land, which some of which it gets evaporated and some of which it gets percolated, and thereby this is a way of disposing the wastewater. Okay, so this is how it is done. Okay, and these are the limits of discharge onto the land. Okay, so the BOD can be up to a range of 500 mg per liter, and the pH value can be in the range of 5.5 to 9. The TDS may be in the range of 2100 mg per liter. Oil and grease 30 mg per liter. Chlorides up to 600 mg per liter. So boron 2 mg per liter. Sulfates 1000 mg per liter. Percentage of sodium with respect to content of calcium, magnesium and potassium 60%. The radio emitters like alpha and beta emitters should be in the range of 10 raised to -9 microcarol per milliliter. Okay, so these are the limits of the tolerance limit which should be kept in mind when you discharge the wastewater for land for irrigation purposes. Okay, then instead of simply discharging onto the land, so if you carefully consider, we can use this wastewater for the sewage farming. Okay, so that means, so as you know, the sewage contains many of the nutrient rich content like nitrates and phosphates, and which are very important for the growth and development of the plants. So that can be otherwise use the wastewater for the irrigation purpose. That technique we call it as sewage farming. Okay, so instead of simply discharging onto the land, so we can use the wastewater for the sewage farming. Okay, so in this picture you can see a farmer is using the wastewater for his land for irrigation. Okay, and scientifically it has been also proved that this can be practiced very well by treating the sewage to the appropriate levels by using the different techniques. Okay, so what are the advantages and disadvantages of land disposal? Okay, so it will add extra manure to the land, so because the sewage contains many nutrients. Then the pollution of natural water is minimized. Okay, if you discharge this wastewater into a river or a ocean, so then it causes the pollution. So if you discharge it onto the land or use it for or practice the sewage farming, the pollution of natural water is minimized, and also it increases the fertility of the land. So it gives high calorific value to crops grown in sewage farms. Okay, so because of the more nutrient rich wastewater, so the calorific value of the crops will be very more, and also you can get yield at a less time because of the high nutrients present in the wastewater. Okay, and it does not require any installation of the high equipment, the modern equipments involving very high cost. Okay, and crops can be grown, and hence a return value is always possible to obtain. Okay, so this method is suitable where large quantity of water is not available at all times of the year. Okay, in some places we have dry pockets. In those cases, wherever you don't find the water at all for irrigation, then people do not have any option to use the sewage water for the irrigation. So under that circumstances, this becomes the advantageous one. Okay, so what are the methods of land treatment? Okay, so disadvantages include the if the sewage is not properly treated, or if the quantity or the sewage is very strong, then it will block the soil particles, and that condition is known as sewage sickness. Okay, so we shall see that later. So but before that, let us see what are the methods of land treatment. Okay, so the irrigation can be broadly divided into two types, that is broad irrigation and sewage farming. The sewage can be applied in two different forms, that is broad irrigation and also the sewage farming methods. Okay, so this is called as the surface farming or broad irrigation method. So in this method, as you can see, the broader channels are made on a flat land surface, and sewage flows from this main channel to the smaller channels. Okay, so and we can use this method. Okay, so it will increase the fertilizing value, and due to the presence of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, these fertilizing elements of sewage are consumed by the roots of the crops, and it is helpful for the crops like cotton, potatoes, sugarcane, grass, etc., and it can be profitably grown. Okay, so here most of the water gets used up by the plant's root zone, and some water gets percolated into the soil, and obviously some water it will be evaporated. Okay, here the sewage farming means the cultivation of the crops using the sewage. Okay, so because of the fertilizing elements present in the wastewater like nitrates, sulfates and phosphorus, so they are effectively used by the roots of the crops. Okay, and it will make the soil fertile. Okay, and it is a profitable business, and good income can be generated by using the sewage farming methods. Okay, so there are various methods which can be used for the sewage farming method. Okay, so out of that, the first one is flooding method, surface irrigation method, zigzag method, lagooning method, basin method, subsoil irrigation method, ridge and furrow irrigation methods. Okay, so this types of irrigation you might have also studied in your hydrology and irrigation subject, but just to have another polishing kind of thing. So this flooding is a technique where the irrigated area is divided into various parts surrounded by the dikes like this. Okay, and sewage water will be filled like small ponds inside these dikes here. Okay, and this is called as the irrigation by flooding method. Here the depth of the dosing varies from 3 to 5 centimeter. Okay, and it depends upon the crop requirements, but usually it will be in the range of 3 to 5 centimeters. So this is the method of flooding using the sewage farming. Okay, so then we have the another method called as the surface irrigation. Okay, so it is also a kind of flooding method. Okay, so but here there will be a channel which runs. Okay, and perpendicular to that channel, so we have the smaller channels. Okay, so this is the drains are constructed. In these drains the water is allowed to stand. Okay, so this will be another method of surface irrigation, so which will help for the proper absorption of the nutrients and water by the plants in this method. Okay, so this is called as the surface irrigation method, and the excess quantity of the wastewater it reaches the other drain. Okay, and the other method is called as the zigzag method. Okay, so here in this method the ridges are arranged in a zigzag method which by the corresponding furrows by their side. Okay, the agriculture area is divided into the zigzag manner, which is as shown in the figure. So here the water flows to the main channel initially, that is the waste water, and from this it will flow into this area, and it will take a zigzag pattern, and it will keep on flowing to the alternative land patch. Okay, so this is called as the irrigation method by zigzag. Okay, so you can see here, so this is the plot which is used for the zigzag method. Okay, it is a natural photograph which is taken. Okay, and this is the head ditch, and this is called a sulka, through which the water is flowing, in a zigzag manner. Okay, here it goes like this, and again it comes back, and likewise it will keep on flowing to the entire area of the irrigated plot. Okay, entire area of the plot which can be used for the irrigation by using the zigzag method. Okay, so the another method is called as lagooning. So here you might have studied also the it's a oxidation pond kind of method. Similarly, this is a lagoon, okay, which is usually located in the farm ponds. Okay, so here the wastewater is allowed to stand in a natural depression, or sometimes it is created artificially to store the wastewater. Here the detention period is about 1 month, and during this period the sludge is stabilized and dried, and it will be settled at the bottom, and the purified wastewater, the treated wastewater, it gets passed through the channel. Okay, and it is used for the irrigation purposes. Okay, and it should be constructed away from the town, because due to the decomposition it may cause the bad odor problem. Okay, and we have also subsurface irrigation methods. Okay, so that is here these the pipes are laid below around 1 to 1.5 meter below the ground. Okay, using these pipes, and there will be the perforations in these pipes. Okay, here you can see in this image, and the water is allowed to wastewater is allowed to flow into these pipes. Okay, and due to the perforations which are present in these pipes, so the wastewater is released from these pipes, and it will directly the roots of the plants will absorb the water along with the nutrients. Okay, so it is a direct feeding to the root level of the plants. Okay, so this method is suitable for the here where the quantity of the water available is, wastewater available is less. Okay, and because of the capillary action, the water will rises, and it will be absorbed by the roots. Okay, and it is the economical method of wastewater irrigation. Okay, and what is the favorable conditions for subsurface irrigation? Like I told you, when the subsurface water level is low, okay, and land is available for cheap, and rainfall is less, and irrigation water demand is heavy. That means for some crops the water requirement is more, and there are certain places in our country and also in different parts of the globe wherever the rainfall is very less, and we may require more water for irrigation. For example, for paddy crop we require very more quantity of water. Okay, and under that circumstance we can go for the subsurface irrigation method, which will avoid the evaporation losses. Okay, and where large areas are available, and when dilution water is not easily available, and the subsurface strata is porous, favoring infiltration. Okay, so the subsurface strata should be porous so as to easily percolate the water, and climate is dry, favoring drying up conditions. Okay, under those circumstances we can go for subsurface farming. And the another method is called as the basin method. Okay, so here you can see for individual plant a small basin is created. Okay, so there will be a supply channel like this, and water will be supplied into this channel. Through this channel, so there are the basins which are created around the plant like this. Okay, around each tree, and these basins are filled with the sewage, maybe with the help of a pipeline or by a channel like this. Okay, and this method is usually suitable for the fruit gardens or orchards. Okay, and this is one of the method of the sewage farming by the basin method. Okay, and we also have ridge and furrow method. Okay, so here the land is divided into ridge and furrows as shown in this figure. Okay, the width of the furrow varies from 120 to 150 centimeter. Okay, so this top part is called as the ridge, and the lower part is called as the furrow. Okay, so the plants are grown on this ridges, okay, whereas the water will be allowed to stand in these furrows. Okay, the width of the ridge varies from 1 to 125 to 250 centimeter, and the length from 10 to 30 centimeter from the ground. Okay, then the percolated effluent is collected in underground drain flowing towards natural drainage for disposal. The water is allowed to flow into these furrows, okay, and the crops will be grown on the ridges. Okay, it is also one of the method of the, and the here the length may vary up to 10 to 30 meter. That is the total length in the along this way. Okay, so it will be 10 to 30 meter depending upon the land, and this will be in the range of 125 to 250 centimeter width. Okay, and this is one of the method of the sewage irrigation. It is called as ridge and furrow method of irrigation, and this is just a comparison between the dilution and land treatment method of sewage disposal. Here, if you practice the disposal by dilution, the large volumes of water may be required. If you practice it by land treatment, then large area of pervious soils are required, because if the soils are not much pervious, it will cause the problem of sewage sickness. Here the income can't be generated if you just simply dilute by dilution method. Here the income can be generated by adopting the sewage farming. Instead of simply discharging the wastewater, we can use it for the farming purposes. Okay, it requires full or partial treatment. It requires preliminary or primary treatment, because if you do not just simply discharge the raw sewage, it will additionally it will have a burden of treating the receiving water body stream, and it will entirely pollute the receiving stream or a lake. Okay, and that's why it requires full treatment. Okay, it causes stream pollution and an unavoidable health hazard. Okay, so because when you discharge by dilution method, we are unnecessarily polluting the receiving waters. Okay, so here it saves the inland streams from getting polluted by the sewage. Okay, so because we are not discharging it onto the streams, we are discharging onto the land, and we are in turn generating income using the wastewater for irrigation. Okay, the pollution travels downstream, and thus the stream may lose its utility for various purposes such as bathing, recreation, etc. Okay, so because the downstream level there will be always discharge of wastewater, so it may prevent the activities like bathing and recreation activities like boating and all. Okay, so here it returns to the land and fertilizing element. Okay, it requires no or low head pumping as the stream passes through lowest contours and valleys. It requires high head pumping, therefore the cost of pumping is relatively high, because if you want to irrigate the land, then we may have to pump the water through longer distances or different gradients. So then we may require pumping to send the sewage to the required area for the sewage farming. Okay, and here we may not require any pumping, because we are just discharging it to the lowest contours and valleys through which it flows into the river water systems. Okay, then sewage sickness. Okay, so sewage sickness is a condition so wherein due to the continuous application of the soil, due to continuous application of the wastewater on a piece of land, the voids present in the soil gets filled up and it gets blocked or clogged. Okay, so because of the organic matter and sewage blocking the soil particles. Okay, and the clogging, again it depends on the type of the soil and load present in the wastewater. Okay, if these these soil particles get clogged, and there won't be any free circulation of air. Okay, and the anaerobic conditions will develop. Okay, so within these pores, the decomposition of organic matter will not take place under anaerobic conditions, and it will lead to the evolution of the foul gases like hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide and methane. So this phenomena of soil particles getting clogged is known as the sewage sickness. Okay, so that means the soil may not be able to take further load of the sewage and it becomes sick. That is why it is called as the sewage sickness. Okay, all the pores get clogged because of the excessive discharge of the sewage. Okay, that condition we call it as sewage sickness. Okay, so how to avoid this sewage sickness? Then for this we should have to choose the primary treatment of sewage. That means we should not directly discharge the wastewater. We should give some preliminary or primary treatment, such as the screening, grit removal and sedimentation method. Okay, so this will help in removing settleable solids and also reducing the BOD level by up to 30% and more, and the soil will not get clogged frequently. Okay, so if you give some pre-treatment, we can avoid this sewage thickness. Then choice of land, whatever the piece of land we are selecting for the sewage disposal should normally be sandy or loamy. Okay, the clayey soils should be avoided because the clay may not contain the loose particles, and if you continuously discharge the sewage, the soil particles gets blocked. And also the under drainage of the soil. Okay, so the soil should have sufficient under draining capacity. Okay, if it is less, in case that is, for example, in case of clays, so it will lead to the sewage sickness. Okay, and the land on which the sewage is being disposed of can be drained. If a system of under drainage is laid below to collect the effluent, this will also minimize the possibility of sewage sickness. Okay, so we can practice the method of under drainage system. That means providing the drainage system below the soil underground. Okay, so that which can collect the drained waste water, and it is sent for the treatment, or it is taken away or collected away from the soil. Okay, we can avoid the problem of the sewage sickness. And also by giving some rest to the land, that is, we should not continuously apply the wastewater onto the sewage, so we should give rest. Okay, and the land being used for disposal should be given rest periodically. This can be done by keeping the extra land as the reserve. Okay, so we can give rest to the land, alternative land, and we can keep using the another pack of soil. Okay, and if that is get again blocked up, then we can give rest, close that land, and we can use the another pack of land which is kept as an alternative. Okay, this can be done to prevent the sewage sickness. And also by the practice of rotation of the crops. Okay, so by practicing different plants and of different crops, this will help in utilizing the fertilizing elements of sewage, and it will also help in the re-aeration of the soil. Okay, so thereby we can avoid the sewage sickness. Okay, and this is a numerical problem. So based on the sewage disposal, so a town is having a population of 50,000 and the rate of water supply is 160 liter per day. Okay, and by the land treatment, the area of land available is 180 hectares. If 80% of water supplied is converted into sewage, find out the consuming capacity of the soil. So here they are asking to find out what is the consuming capacity of the soil. Here the quantity of sewage generated can be obtained by the population and the rate of water supply, which you know. So that is, we are multiplying this 50,000 into 160 LPCD, and they are telling that 80% of water will be coming out as the wastewater. Then it becomes 6400 into 10 to the power of 3 liters. If we convert this liter into meter cube per day, then it becomes 6400 meter cube per day. Then total area of the land is 180 hectares. Okay, so here, like I told you, in this case we will keep 50% land extra as the reserve for rest and the rotation. Okay, so for that reason the actual available area for the land application is given by 180 divided by 1.5, that is equal to 120 hectares. We are keeping this land as 50% land as the reserve and rotation out of this 180 hectares. Okay, so therefore the consuming capacity of the soil is given by the total quantity of sewage divided by total land area. Okay, so that's why it is 6400 divided by 120, that is equal to 53.33 cubic meters per hectare per day. So this is the consuming capacity of the soil. Okay, so by wastewater can be effectively used for sewage farming to limit the use of the fresh water. Okay, so nowadays like I told you, in many parts of the country and also the globe, we are facing the shortage of water, that is fresh water for irrigation. So instead of just simply discharging the wastewater into rivers and streams and oceans, so it is better if we recycle this water and properly give some pre-treatment and use it for the sewage farming. Okay, so this will save the fresh water requirement. Okay, so we'll stop, and I think this is the end of your module 2. We have spoken about there are some numerical problems which has to be solved based on the disposal of effluents. Okay, and this is the end of module 2. Okay.